Hey, welcome back to another episode of JM's Rock Talk. I'm Mark. This is Jim, my brother. We are sitting here doing our part two to our welcome back after a 2-year hiatus of not doing videos. So if you haven't seen the first video, well, you really should because you won't understand what we're doing here on part two. But we are in the process of trying is a general term here, trying to give you guys our top 3 albums for the decades of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. We've already had our discussion on the 60s and 70s, so let's jump right in here to the 80s and the 90s.
So we'll start with the 1980s on this one. And Mark, if you want to start with your picks.
No, I told you should go first. You go first.
I go first. Okay. So for the 1980s, I'm starting off with Rush, Moving Pictures from 1981.
I was so happy you did that when you told me.
Yeah. You cannot deny that Rush was a huge influence and a huge band. When they came out with Moving Pictures, they had already had amassed a large following and had some amazing songs out there, but Moving Pictures really took them into a whole new realm. And the whole album, again, is one that just...
I love putting that on in the car.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That is a great car CD right there. You just throw that in there if you got a long drive. What a great
In fact, album. I just listened to the album the other day. I put it on and was listening to it. So my second pick, this is a change. And I'm going with the Police, Ghost in a Machine. Ghost in the Machine. So I saw that grimace from 1981.
No, I love Ghost in the Machine. Don't get me wrong, and I love the Police, but I thought you had another out. Maybe you're going to hit me out there. All right, just keep going. Go.
Yeah.
Go.
So, I gave this some thought, and originally I was going with Peter Gabriel, number 3, his third album, Melt, and it's based on the melting picture on the front, because again, that's an incredible album. But the Police. First of all, again, they kind of have more of that rock element, I would say in general. But Ghost in the Machine, I don't know. It's just an amazing album. The sound they achieved on that, it's not an album. So when they made Synchronicity, again, there are certain songs on that album that I really like, but I think it became too big of it was almost too commercial for me, whereas Ghost in the Machine still retained some of their early punk style, but there were some other elements that were coming into it that just made it a very fascinating album to hear.
Yeah, I agree with you. By the time Synchronicity came through, I was not overly impressed with it, and that's kind of it actually almost turned me off to listening to him anymore. And I kind of think that's what happened is, I would always return to what I liked, which was Ghost in the Machine. But then, my taste moved and shifted, and the Police just they dissolved. And so after they dissolved, I didn't really follow Sting and his solo career. So
but I this one particular album I do return to, and I do occasionally put it on because
that's a great album.
The sounds and some the songs are just great to my ear. All right.
Yeah, it's very different. I mean, it's a really different sound. I mean, it isn't anything like.
Well, it's nothing like their previous albums, which are definitely much more punk influenced, and there was a change, there was a shift in what they were doing. So. And then my third album, I'm taking a very far right turn from the Police, and it is Iron Maiden, The Number of the Beast from 1982. Awesome album.
We've talked about Iron Maiden in the past on some of the other episodes. We both love Iron Maiden. And people that, like me, who's a big Deadhead, people hear me and say I love Iron Maiden, and they're like, what?
Yep.
I love this pick, and I told you that. I was like, spot on, man. Awesome job with that one. I didn't put that on my list, and we were both convinced that we were going to have some crossovers.
Yeah,
we never did. That was really cool that we didn't do that. And
all right, so let's listen to your picks.
I am, but you left off the Who.
Yes,
you
I
were
did.
going to put the Who,
Yep.
and you are the biggest Who freak on the planet that I know of. So why did you end up not doing it?
I left them off because, again, I kind of placed them with the Beatles and the Stones. There were too many albums that I could have picked from, and I decided I would rather not pick one. I can't narrow it down. So
Yeah.
I left the Who off purposely, and
And I know we didn't talk about that, but I had the same mindset, and that I
yep,
couldn't possibly
yep.
even think about changing it. It is what it
Yeah,
is.
and I will say, I'm also a huge Peter Gabriel fan, huge Peter Gabriel fan. And like I said, I thought about putting his one album on there, but again, many of his albums could easily go on there. So I decided
I
it's
don't know
better
which
to
one
leave
you
him
pick.
off
That's the hardest.
and he's his own category. The Who are their own category, just like the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, and
Mm.
Pink Floyd and the Stones. They're kind of their own category. So
I'm going to go with 1981, Van Halen's "Fair Warning." First time I ever heard that record, I had to put
Yep.
it on and listen to it again because it was that powerful. It was
Yep.
so influential to me, and I was like, it is what allowed me to listen to more of it. I was just flabbergasted, to use a good word there, flabbergasted.
Yep.
Eddie Van Halen just blew my socks off. I think
Yeah.
if you have never listened to Eddie Van Halen, shame on you. Go grab this album. That's all I'm going to say. My number 2 pick. This was a really tough decision. All right, I'm going to go with U2's Joshua Tree.
Okay.
And I was never a big U2 fan until after I got out of school, after I was out of college in my adult years, and I started really beginning to listen to more and more of U2. And by far, I think this is their best album. It could be debatable. But to me, just solid material. There's one song I get tired of listening to on that album.
Yep.
And I know you like U2. Actually, you're one that kind of influenced me to start listening to them a little bit. I just kind of put them on the back burner for a long time.
U2 has some incredible albums out there. And, again, I see them as kind of a category unto themselves. And Joshua Tree, when it came out, I listened to that nonstop. That was just one of those albums.
Great album.
Yep. It is a great album.
All right. So my third pick, got to do it. I had to eliminate somebody I absolutely friggin' love, but I had to do this because when I say it, everyone's going to go, okay. Guns and freaking Roses, man. Love Guns and Roses. Love them.
Yep.
Appetite for Destruction. That's the album.
Okay.
I remember being in my dorm room. My roommate came in and plopped his body down and said, listen to this.
Yep.
This is before they were popular and before anybody really knew who they were. And he says, you got to hear this. And he put it on. I went, oh my freaking goodness gracious. What is this? I love GNR. Never will stop liking GNR. So if you're a GNR fan out there, good for you.
Okay.
So that's my 3 picks for the 80s.
Nice. All right. We're going to finish up with the 90s. And I have to say that the 90s for me was the hardest decade. And Mark and I were talking about this the other day. The rock scene was changing quite a bit. And this was when I was in my 20s, going into my 30s. And I was also really starting to listen to a lot of music outside of the rock world as well, more so than I had been. My first one from 1992, Alice in Chains' Dirt. That's of all the grunge bands that were coming out at the time, even more so than Nirvana, Alice in Chains had a grit to their sound, and there was just there was something about it that just really, in fact, I was listening to him earlier today, believe it or not.
Yeah, so was I. That's a weird thing that you say that. That's crazy.
Yeah. So Alice in Chains' Dirt is my first pick from.
I could argue that one. I could never argue that one.
Yeah. And then my second pick, and this is my change from the other day, And this might be a little controversial to you.
I doubt that
Um,
seriously, but okay, go for it.
So, Nine Inch Nails, The Downward Spiral
Oh
from
God.
1994.
Okay. All right. All right.
No.
Really? Really? Okay. You've
And
been going along this whole time. 2 videos. I've agreed with everything you got going. Nine
we
Inch
have to have
Nails.
some point of contention. So I went back and I re-listened to this album a couple days ago, and there were a couple of hits on the album, but if you listen to the album as a whole, and particularly near the last half of the album, the Trent Reznor was really starting to experiment with a lot of sounds. And this also shows where I was starting to I was searching for new sounds to listen to. I was searching for not just a rock driven thing. I was searching for music that was experimenting with I'll call it the sonic palette, with the sounds that were being used to create different moods. And if you really listen to it, and out of that, Johnny Cash actually did a cover of Hurt, which is on that album. And it's one of the most poignant covers ever done. And if you listen to Johnny Cash's take on that particular song, so Nine Inch Nails was really they're kind of they were the industrial music.
I'll give you that. I will give you credit for pulling something a little risque out of the box. I was not really prepared.
I wouldn't say risque, risky.
Yeah.
So
sure, we'll go with that too. But
yeah.
I didn't see this one. I got hit with left field here. You hit me with this one hard.
Good.
This one I was a shock on. I'm still sitting here trying to pull that one in my brain. I'm like,
oh yeah.
When did you ever like this band? I never.
Oh, I got the album as soon as it came out. I've had that album in my collection from the moment it came out. And
I'm not a big fan.
I have a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for Trent Reznor. I'm not much into his videos, and I'm not much into the aesthetic that he was going for, but the music that he was creating and has since created is very fascinating stuff. So anyway, again, it's our own taste, and that's what's beautiful about music. All right, my last pick, and I know this one's also a bone of contention, but I cannot go without saying Radiohead and OK Computer from 1990.
Now, John, my student John, I have already told you, John is a big Radiohead fan, so you hit John in the soft spot. You got the King Crimson in there, and you got Radiohead in there, so he'll love this. This is
and you can kind of see a thread that has gone through my musical taste. I love progressive, as well as metal and punk and all these other styles, but progressive, there's just something about it and all the iterations, and Radiohead is kind of that continuation of what King Crimson started back in the late 60s, and they have now brought it up into the 21st century. So Radiohead, OK Computer, and that's my take on the 90s.
So my first pick is Metallica, the Black Album, 1991.
Great album.
How could you not have Metallica on the list? If we have Black Sabbath, right? If we have Iron Maiden, you have to finish up with some Metallica. Metallica is just Metallica.
Yep.
So that's my first pick. So if you agree with me over Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails, thank you. All right, next one. We're going back into the grunge. We are very similar here. Pearl Jam, 10.
Yep.
That was such a huge influential album. I mean, it was Pearl Jam's really, it was their breakout album, it was their first album, and there isn't one bad song on there. To this day, I challenge anybody to put on Jeremy and not sing along. So everyone knows. Just the way it is.
Yep.
So I have two more on my list, and I
pick one.
I know I got to pick one, but I'm still staring. Here's my notes right here in my hand. I'm going with Rage Against the Machine.
Okay.
Bull on Parade. And the reason I want to bring them in is, and I just want to say, I was going to put Green Day out there, Dookie, because I love the album, just throwing it out there, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. You know, Rage Against the Machine is just one of these bands that if you saw them live, which I never got a chance to do, but looking at the footage, I'd have loved to have been there. Not because it was crazy out in the audience, but Zach puts on such an energetic show. Just the whole band does. And yes, they are politically charged, and they were trying to make some very clear statements. And I think they did a great job bringing attention to a younger generation who didn't pay attention to the news, who didn't listen to what was happening around them or wanted to see what was happening. Well, Rage Against the Machine is my third and final pick.
Okay.
It's a classic. You know, I think we did our best, and I want to thank John for igniting the flame back under our feet to do this again. And hopefully we'll get a few more viewers and subscribers at this point. And we're going to come back at you with some really cool topics. We're going to try something a little bit different.
Hopefully this has been a provocative discussion. You know, what would be your three favorite albums from a particular decade? And as you can see, it's not easy and different depending on the decade. You know, there could be some, particularly if you're doing it with somebody that you're close to see the differences. And you know, that's what makes music so magical, because you know, everybody has their own tastes, and sometimes those tastes cross over, and sometimes they don't. But
you can't appeal to everybody.
Yep, you can't appeal to everybody is right, and but it could be a fascinating mind exercise.
Absolutely, I love the exercise. I love this challenge. So, with that being said, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell, and we'll try to do some things. Comment below. Always looking for comments and feedback, and we'll certainly take everything into consideration. But at this stage in the game, we're going to say thank you, and we'll see you in the next one. This is Jim and Mark, and this is our reboot, Jams Rock Talk, and we'll see you on the next one. Be good.